Opal's cat and?
Kitty.
So we're just going to talk about our kayak trip, what went well, what went wrong. So
Most of it went very well. I thought Hooples was very organized. All the food was very smooth. The equipment was very functional. We stayed nice and dry. We had some bad weather, which was something you can always count on, but never really prepare for, and I think we were fine. We had some harder kayaks than we might have because of the weather, but that was all right. We reacted appropriately when we got close to getting in trouble. Problems, wet feet, and then very smelly feet. So I did have 2 pairs of shoes, so I changed into dry shoes when we were done kayaking for the day, but I'd rather have a better system for shoes and feet. Yeah, navigation, I hadn't really given a great deal of thought to it, but it can be very tricky. It was a very convoluted lake. Lots of inlets, lots of bays, not a huge amount of open water, so it was harder to figure out where you were going.
no buildings, so you couldn't see where you're going.
Very few reference points, nothing was marked. We made a mistake in not bringing the map of the campsites because those are numbered and you could tell exactly where you are if you knew what number campsite you came upon. So that was a mistake.
Don't rely on one map.
No, have more reference points for where you're going. And yeah, it was fun. It was a little adventure.
Was it what you expected?
It was more fun than I expected.
Okay, good.
It was incredibly beautiful, so that helped.
How did you find the tent?
Perfect.
Would you feel comfortable putting the tent up now on your own?
Yeah, I'm a little klutzy, but yeah, I could. So I think Hooples will have some great footage of the storm.
Maybe.
One of our first, we had about 5 thunderstorms, so the first one that was during a day, we got the opportunity to watch the whole weather system come in. And then when it rained, got to dive into a dry tent, lie there and just watch the tent wave in the wind and listen to the thunder.
So I do have that on this camera, but the GoPro may be broken, I don't know. I'm waiting till I get home. So the GoPro might be broken. I'm going to change the battery when I get home. I'm hoping it's not, because I have some great footage on that, but if it isn't, then I'll get the footage, and if it is, I'll get the footage anyway and be very annoyed. However, I did get the footage in the first storm. In terms of the going out, I misread the map, so it wasn't actually as long a kayaks as I was expecting.
Oh, that was probably good given the circumstances.
Right. So we only had basically one day where we had nice kayaking weather.
I think the first day after the storm was nice, kayaking weather. After that, the water was always choppy, and at one point white capping, and a little headwind, so it was hard work.
Right. So what was your favourite food that you had?
I liked the herb risotto with pesto.
So herb risotto with pesto was a hit. I took 11 dehydrated packets of food, and of course, as I always say, like 1 packet's for 1 person, to be honest with you, and we ended up with 5 left over after 5 days and 4 nights. So I was a little concerned there wouldn't be enough food. I took a few bars, not a huge amount. I took some nuts, which I think really were
A hit?
Yeah. So that's the one thing I definitely would do on any of this sort of thing, any endurance activity from now on, is make sure I've got plentiful salted nuts, specifically salted nuts. So I thought that was nice. Porridge, how was that?
Great.
Like the porridge?
No problems with that.
So I think it was important that I did the variety of toppings though, because I had dried fruit and then I had nuts and stuff.
I do miss fresh food because
Right.
I always eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and so that wasn't as... You can't do that. You just can't carry that stuff. I mean, not with the limited resources of kayaks, because the kayaks were also heavy. They were loaded with their stuff. So
Right.
you can't carry a salad.
And nor can you forage in the forest to make a salad.
No. And I also think we got lucky going later in the season. We really didn't have a particularly buggy trip. There were a few times. I had a few bites and a few itches, but nothing terrible. It didn't ruin our evenings, although we tended to go to bed. We'd watch the sunset and then go to bed, which is a nice way to do things.
Yeah, I never used the DEET at all, and I'm happy about that. Kitty got me a couple of birthday presents, which I didn't know were birthday presents, and shoved in the kayak bags, which were...
They were just testing out some natural bug sprays.
Whether they worked or not, I think they kind of did. I think you'd have to reapply them every hour to be honest.
You do.
And I do think the dragon thing works. So the dragonfly in my head, I think it worked. Yesterday here, Kitty and her sister went out for one of the dog walks, and I wasn't going to go, and then I decided to go. And they walked faster than I did, so I lost them, because they didn't know I was following them. So I went down an old ATV trail, right through the heart of the forest, with a lot of water down, because we had a very wet summer here, and didn't really get bitten. I did have a little bit of natural stuff on, and I did have the dragonfly on. So I think the dragonfly actually works, even though it makes you look goofy.
You would be talking to people now that and not think about it, and they'd look at him like he was a Looney Tune. But that's okay, we are a bit loony.
Like I said, if it only works psychologically, it's worth getting, I think, because bugs are a big psychological thing anyway. So yeah, on the next to last day, we had to kayak, which I estimate to be a 2-hour kayak from one campsite to the other. And we had fairly bad weather.
Very bad weather.
So we had 1 foot waves, and then the 1 foot waves become 2 foot waves. And although you get splash over, and I've got a little bit on the GoPro, that very little. I don't really mind the splash over, but I hadn't brought skirts for the kayak, because until Kitty's actually rolled in a skirt and rolled without a skirt, I think they're actually very dangerous just to put on. So the water wouldn't have come in with the skirt, so I should have had a skirt on, but I would also argue on flat lakes like this, if you're wearing a skirt, you probably shouldn't be out there. So what happened with me was I was actually getting, most of the waves were actually not just splashing over, but were actually rolling in. And my rule of thumb is once it hits the bottom of the seat in the kayak, you have to land and get the water out. So it was interesting because you didn't understand what was really going on.
Well, I wasn't getting any water in.
Right. So you were wondering why I wanted to put in.
No, I was okay with putting in. I understood the waves were getting too high. It was hard go, you know.
So how much water was in my kayak when we emptied it?
A ton of water. It was startling.
Gallons, yeah.
But we did chance upon a very beautiful campsite that I would go back to in the future. It even had a beach. It was beautiful. Yeah. So that was okay. And we were lucky. Whenever we had to pull over, there was something we could pull over to, because it's not always accessible by kayak. You know, it's a rock cliffy kind of lake. So that was lucky. And we had to make decisions on whether to carry on or just stay, and carry on or just stay. We didn't want to leave too long a kayak for the last day, and we actually made the right decision, even though we had to make another emergency landing because of a hailstorm.
Yeah, we had hail, almost sleet, from a thunderstorm whilst we were out on the lake.
Very brief.
Very brief, but very unsettling.
Powerful.
And very cold, very cold. Temperature just went thump. And again, like, the weather is getting quite unsettled. Now, since we came in, it's been gorgeous, and this would have been great kayaking weather. But I estimated 2 hours maximum for the kayak, and it actually was 4 hours, not really including the stops. That's how hard it was. Now, Kitty is strong. I'll show you that. Kitty's strong. She works out all the time. I'm not as strong as I should be. I'm stronger now because of these 2 trips, so I'm going to try and maintain that. But I think the main message I got from this kayak trip was pare down even further. I'm taking redundancies that I don't need. Like the BioLite stove works fine.
Oh yeah.
The cook kit from Jeff Helm from Canadian Sheepdog worked great, but I wanted a bigger pot. Like having to cook the porridge separately was annoying. But overall, like, why am I carrying my Stanley Cup? Why am I carrying this? Why am I carrying that? So we survived. Kitty didn't kill me. This is my birthday day, so I'm enjoying it. We're going to go back and see our dogs, saying goodbye to their dogs, and yeah, I think we had fun.
We had fun.
But the real proof of the pudding is, would you do it again?
Yeah, for sure. It was good. It's so beautiful. I mean, I like to just stare at the water and the trees and the sky.
And that was the other surprise for me, was that the power boats were more obvious to me because it's a smaller lake. It's a longer lake, but it's smaller. So the second lake I went to is actually got a lot of cottages on it, but it was actually much more peaceful and serene. So that's one of the things we might do next year, is actually go to the second lake and revisit some of the sites I went to, and maybe try out a few others and see how it goes. Now Kitty can sleep on the ground.
Well, that wasn't the most comfortable of things.
But by the last night you were okay.
I was on a bed of leaves. It was very
Bed
good.
of leaves. That made the difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very different lake, much more rocky, much more out there in terms of wilderness, but there was more people closer to you, which is, I don't know, I kind of would like both. So maybe we'll have to go even further north at some point, but I think we need to get, I think we both need to get much more experienced at doing this, because it's, when the weather turns, it's kind of scary. Anyway, that's all from us. We survived.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so where was I?
Dragonfly.
Oh yeah. What are we eating today? What are you cooking?
Today we're having tofu and pasta and homemade pesto from the garden with broccoli and
That's
red
really
peppers and yeah.
That's Winnie. Shamoo. Shamoo. He's a big boy.